much fun. What's up, everybody? It's the Rice Rocketeer. Thanks for tuning in for another vlog. I am out here in, I guess, Mineola. Mineola, headed back to Manhattan. Let's do it. And today I wanted to talk about a question that it's like the number one question of everybody. And I get it a lot at the dealership, and I've been, I constantly am reworking my answer to what makes for a good beginner bike. I have a lot of people come in, and we at Triumph, we don't really have all that many low capacity bikes. Now that's changing in January because we'll have the 400s in, which I'm very excited for, because the 400s, they look amazing, and 400s are great. When we have those, the clear answer for me, for any beginner, would be like, start with the 400, depending, but they look like a tremendous amount of fun, classic styling. You have the Scrambler, and then we have the Speed 400 coming out, so those, I'm very excited for those. But as it stands right now, we kind of start at 660 cc's, go up to 900, and then 1200. 765, this bike being the one in between the 660 and the 900, but it's a big jump for anyone looking to start who's maybe not all that confident, and 600 sounds like a lot. We don't have any lower powered right now, and lower powered bikes right now. So anyway, the conversation I most often find myself in is with people who I believe could handle more, and of course I'm not going to push anything on anyone if you're not comfortable with the idea. It's all about you. But I think there's a huge focus on the amount of cc's a bike has, and not so much the other factors, which I believe are equally, if not more, important. And those factors are, well, the first of those factors is your physical ability to handle the bike. To me, that's very important. Of course, throttle management and the amount of power a bike can put out is up there as well. But if you're tall and you can flat foot the bike doesn't feel overly heavy, and you can push it back, forwards and backwards. You can manage that bike physically, at least. That's a huge factor. Even if somebody has ridden dirt bikes as a kid growing up and knows what they're doing, but they really haven't ridden in, like, let's say, 10 years or so, and they're less familiar, and they're looking at the Tiger 1200, that's still, if they're my height, that's still a tremendous amount of bike to manage. So I think, to me, I always would like, I ask people to sit on the bike, not because I'm trying to do some sales tactics, but because I think it's really the only way to know if you could ever foresee yourself owning that particular bike. So I always encourage that. The second factor I think people often overlook is, what type of person are you? There's some people who are new riders who are excited and they do a lot of physical activities, and they, technically they're very capable. If you're that type of person, a little extra power might not be the worst thing to have, because you're going to get acclimated. Likely you're going to want to master the craft, and you're going to go and practice, so it depends on you and your approach to, other things that are maybe not motorcycling. How do you treat hobbies? How do you treat crafts? How, technically able are you? For example, I grew up riding bicycle, skateboarding, rollerblading when I was young through downtown Manhattan. So I would go up traffic, I would go on and off the street, jump up the curb, so I knew I was physically able, and I'm really kind of turned on by things that require you to figure out the skill, figure out the craft, and make it work for you. So I knew that I could probably do something a bike that is a little bigger to start, because even though it's, you know, I bought an Indian FTR. It wasn't my first bike, but even though it's a 1200cc bike, I knew that I would be able to have the restraint, and I had the dedication to go in a parking lot and learn it. So, and then there's other people who are very timid and kind of like, I don't even know if this is for me. And in that case, you know, 1200ccs, terrible idea. Not a good idea at all. So I think it's not emotional maturity. It's more like, what type of person are you? You have to honestly look at yourself and decide, am I going to actually go practice and be like really careful, or do I just want something to kind of like throw around the city and not worry about? Again, totally up to the person. But equally as important as just this kind of like rigid formula of like anything under 600 is perfect, anything over is not, because it's not always the case. And then the third thing I think people overlook is, what are you going to use the bike for, right? Regardless of like what your dreams and aspirations are, regardless of whether you're technically and physically able to handle the bike, what are you going to use it for? Like, you know, even if you're physically and mentally able to get a 1200cc bike, right? Or a sport bike, or whatever the case is, if you're just using it to commute, are you going to get the most out of that experience? Like, are you going to enjoy it? Because, you know, if I had, let's say, my dream was a sport bike, this bike, let's say, and the only riding I ever wanted to do was to, like, go out to the bar and, like, go to work, which is, like, 3 miles away from me. Like, sure, yeah, I could do it, and I could physically manage it, and I could mentally manage it, right? I check all the boxes. But this bike needs to be in a situation like this, if not the track. It needs to be out here. It wants to be out here, and just riding around the city, while doable. This is, again, I've said before, like, you can use this bike in the city, it's great. It's not going to be the best bike for that. Like, actually, honestly, if I only did city riding and only commuted, I would probably do a 400, because in the city, a 400 is a tremendous amount of fun. I rode the Ninja 400, that was like a month ago, before I sold it, and around Brooklyn, it was amazing. I loved it. And I totally would have done that. I wish I had it as a second bike, to be honest. So again, this would not be the best choice for me in that setting. If I was, again, in that same vein, this same bike, if I wanted to do long tours, right? Like, I wanted to go to Boston, or if I had to go to Boston once a week, or if I wanted to go to other states, this would probably not be the best bike, even regardless of whether or not I can handle it. It just doesn't fit the purpose, right? So the purpose of the bike is another thing that people often kind of think about after the fact. You know, I'll ask them the question of like, well, what do you see yourself doing? Are you going on trips, or are you just commuting? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I guess everything. And like, it's an important thing to think about, because it determines how much you're going to enjoy the bike, regardless of whether or not you can handle it. And then, of course, CCs. CCs are important. They are, because it dictates the amount of power that will be produced. So yes, it is something to be mindful of, but equally, actually more important than the amount of CCs is the type of engine it is, guys. Like, that's kind of like the building block. So like CCs, I almost want to say the amount of CCs comes second to what type of engine it is. I think the type comes first, and then you decide how much power you need in that type. So by type, I mean, is it a single cylinder? Is it a parallel twin, a V-twin? Is it a triple inline 4, a V4? There are many different ways in which engines are built, and the amount of pistons and the angle at which they sit, and you know, the orientation of the engine dictates. All of that dictates how the ride is going to be. So, a 1200cc V-twin is going to hit a lot differently than a 1200cc inline 4. The power is going to be much less manageable on an inline 4 than it will be on a V-twin. The V-twin will also have more torque down low. That's just the way they're designed. So, whereas the inline 4 is going to be not dead, but a lot less peppy down low, but it will be a lot more powerful up top, and that power will hit very quickly, making it less ideal for beginners, in my opinion. So that's another thing you kind of want to look into, and it's not very hard to research. You can kind of just Google different types of motorcycle engines, car engines too. It works the same way, but if you're about a bike, look at bikes. You know, to understand what you're getting into. I think, you know, the classic, at least over the past 20 years, because over the past 20 years, sport bikes were the focus. A lot of guys would want to get inline 4s, not knowing that once you rev them out and you get in the higher range, that power smacks you in the face. And there have been a lot of accidents due to people going way faster than they should have, and that is likely due to not being able to manage their own speed. So, yeah, I think that those are the main things that I always impress upon people when talking about beginner bikes, because I think people, they read that general rule of thumb of like the CC measurement, and then they get kind of deterred and they get upset because they get so focused on finding a bike that is only 400 cc's and nothing more, and that kind of limits you. It does limit you. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, but I think there's a lot of wiggle room in the potential for a beginner bike, depending on you, and it's unique to you. There's no one size fits all. So number one, what are you going to use the bike for? What's the purpose? Number two, can you physically manage the bike? Number three, what type of rider are you? Are you going to practice and do your due diligence, or do you just want to get out of the dealership, ride around, go to the, you know, go get dinner with friends and not worry about any of this stuff? Number four is engine orientation, what type of engine it is, and also, you know, subsection B is how many cc's is that bike. Everyone's going to disagree in regards to like what order those points, you know, how much importance each one of those points holds, but I think they all kind of work in tandem. And before you get deterred, before you get so focused on just cc's, think about all of the following, you know. And better yet, if you if you have a friend with a bike, go to a parking lot and just do some like really like basic stuff to see how you like the power, see how you feel on whatever that bike is, and if you can handle a tall bike, short bike, whatever that bike is. I don't know, it's just a hypothetical, but that would be the ideal situation, is to try any bike and just see whether you feel you need more or less, if is it too high, too heavy, etc. Yeah, there are many considerations, not just cc's. This engine is feeling so good right now. One other thing I want to touch on is the idea of growing into a bike. I think it's good and bad. Again, it depends on the person, right? So like, to me that means less like, if you're doing it for financial reasons, of like, I want to buy one bike, I don't want to have to buy multiple bikes, so I'm going to buy the S1000RR and grow into it. Bad idea. Because, you know, I think money should never trump your safety and kind of the reality of something that can be as dangerous as riding a motorcycle. It shouldn't be done solely for financial reasons. It is well worth wasting a little bit of money to feel comfortable and confident. It doesn't mean that it can't be done. It just means that, you know, be wary of that. Like, again, I said this in the other video, in one of my videos. I think I was going to Jersey and talking about it. I rode the Aprilia, the 210 V4 factory 1100. Never, ever should that bike be someone's first bike. Like, there are just certain bikes that it's like, no. Yeah, sure, I could buy it and be like, yeah, I'm gonna grow into it. That bike is so twitchy, and like, it's just not a good beginner bike in any way. You're gonna be in serious trouble. So I haven't ridden a ton of bikes. I've owned 5. I've test drove maybe 3 more outside of those 5. And I think I'm a pretty confident rider, but I know there are other bikes within that realm of Tuono that I would just be like, no, absolutely not. Don't ever buy that as your first bike. I don't care if your whole family rides motorcycles and like you've never ridden a bike before. It just, no. So there's certain bikes that principle of like I'll grow into it just doesn't work. But yeah, absolutely that can work. And if you want to buy something and you think that you're gonna like practice with it and kind of work your way into it, sure. The only thing is it's not going to be a tremendous amount of fun, and it's going to be difficult for the average person. It's going to be difficult to ride it in a controlled way. So it's a lot better to ride, that's what they say, right? It's a lot better to ride a slow bike fast than a fast bike slow. Riding a fast bike slow is less fun, and the reason we do this, the reason we ride motorcycles, is to have fun. So just be mindful. When I had my Indian FGR, I thought it was an amazing bike. It was really cool. I only had it for like a year and a couple months. I in no way scratched the surface of what that bike is supposed to be. Now I could do it, but I was 3 months into my riding career. I had my single-cylinder BMW G310R for like 3 or 4 months, I can't remember, and then I switched over. I should have stayed with the BMW because I would have had much more fun. I had more fun taking that to Bear Mountain than I did my Indian FTR. I never revved the FTR fully out. I never really leaned it the way it should be. I never accelerated as quickly as I could. I didn't get to use that bike for what it was supposed to, and it was, I ended up getting it totaled, so I got paid out. But had I bought it, I would have wasted $16,000 on a bike and not ever having got to use it as it should be. So that's just something to keep in mind. I would say ride a bike until you are dead tired of it and like you just want something new. You got to switch it up, because that's the way you get the most fun out of your ride. Like with this bike, I would be lying if I said I didn't have that itch to get a 1200 again, because I do like that power, but I still haven't even used this bike to its potential. This is a ton of fun. It's 765 cc's, triple, 130 horsepower, 67 foot-pound of torque. It is more than enough, and I've yet to like use this to its full potential, so I'm going to stick with it and enjoy the shit out of it until, I don't know if I'll ever get tired of this bike, but don't underestimate lower powered bikes. They can be a ton of fun. So that's what I have to say on beginner bikes, and that's what I have to say on the I'll grow into it approach. Just be wary. That's it. Be wary. But yeah, if you have beginner questions, please drop them in the comments below. I love trying to figure it out. That's what I like. I like the process of like doing the technical, hey, what's the best price we can do on this bike, hey, I want, like all the technical stuff to me is less important. The more important stuff is finding the route of your desire to drive and making sure that you understand that it's possible in some way, shape, or form. We can get you on a bike and we can make this all come true, because this is beautiful. To me, this is therapy. This is what I look forward to every day, every week and month. This is what makes me tick. So I want to share that with people. That's why I enjoy working at the dealership. That's what I like about it. Seeing people ride off the best part of my week, because I know that your life is just about to get exponentially better. That's what turns me on about the whole process. Anyway, that is sort of a semi-ad for coming down to try Brooklyn to see me. Come on down, talk about bikes, or drop a comment here and I can do a video in response with any questions you may have about what bike weight may be right for you and how to choose your first beginner bike. I would love to hear from you guys. So that's it for the video today, guys. I'm going to head back into Manhattan, probably get something to eat. Thanks for tuning in for another vlog, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.